All right, well, let's move on to the number 14 player on the ESPN Top 50 Big Board. We are all Oregon fans, so I think we're all a big fan of Oregon tight end Kenyon Sadiq, but there is no bigger fan than Avery. So I'm going to have Avery start with Kenyon Sadiq.
Kenyon Sadiq is a baller. Dude's a straight up athlete. Every time he's on the field, every time he touches the ball, I mean, something awesome usually happens, whether he's hurdling someone, you think he might be tackled, and then it turns out none of his limbs touch the ground. He ends up spinning out, getting an extra 10 to 15 yards. Every time he touches it, something amazing is happening. I know that he is a man among boys for the most part against most college competition. He reminds me a lot of Evan Ingram, both size-wise and then also his play style. One thing here, areas of improvement. This is where I kind of diverge a little bit with Joel, but only to a degree. Just that catch focus on throws above his numbers. I have noticed that a lot of the throws from Dante Moore, his quarterback, seem to go a little bit over his head. Which is unfortunate because of all the receivers. I mean, like, the amount of times that those Oregon receivers had to slow down to catch a ball was ridiculous. And the fact that it only happened to Kenyon was a little bit ironic. But my thing isn't necessarily catching above the numbers. My thing is landing properly. There was 2 times in, like, immediate memory that he jumps up. I mean, a great, like, diving catch, but vertical diving, and then ends up landing, and he's just so big that it's like, hey, that cannot have, felt good. That couldn't have been good. I'm worried about him breaking a hip, even at age 21. So I would say for the most part, it's really just keeping himself healthy. This is not a direct comparison, but just as far as injuries go, a little bit of Derrick Rose is how I've always kind of seen him. Again, they're not the same type of player. They don't even play the same sport. They're not the same size. But Derrick Rose was a victim of his own athleticism, where just constant explosive jumping from both knees. It was only a matter of time before it just caught up with him. It was just unfortunate that it happened earlier than you would like. I really hope that Kenyon Sadiq paces himself, at least as far as the physically risky plays, maybe get a little bit more like, and not to the same degree as, Lockett. Tyler Lockett, where he's just, protecting himself a little bit more. Of course, by doing that, you do negate some of the explosive, amazing plays that he does have. So it's really kind of up to him and how he feels like he wants to spend his NFL career. But this guy's a monster.
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind when you look at Kenyon Sadiq, just looking at him, is that he's an absolute freak athlete. He's 6'3", 245. He's got a 41.5-inch vertical. He can power clean 365 pounds, bench 435 pounds. He can run a 4.5 40. The dude is just an absolute freak athlete. And he uses every bit of that athleticism as a blocker. And that's really where he excels, is as a blocker. Oregon used him as a blocker a lot because he's so good at it. He's just very physical and impactful as a blocker. The only thing with his blocking, I would say, is that his technique needs some refinement, but I think that can be easily fixed at the NFL level. He's more of just a good blocker because he is such a good athlete that he just uses athleticism to overpower the defenders instead of actually with the proper technique. But I think that is a pretty easy fix for him at the NFL level.
I've got some real mixed feelings here. If you just stop at his statistics, he's not a first-round pick. He's just not. If just straight numbers. But when you watch the tape, going back, he had 40 receiving yards a game and 8 total touchdowns. Now, they were all receiving touchdowns. 8 touchdowns, great. But 40 yards a game, you're not talking about that at any position, well, maybe running back, but not tight end or receiver as, 40 yards a game, that's a first-round pick. That's for sure first-round guy.
But that's because Oregon used him as a blocker so much because he's so good at it.
Yep. That's where it's going next, is that the tail of the tape says something different. If you watch the film, it says something completely different. Great body control and explosiveness. He gets moved all over the formation. They use him in the run blocking so much. If you watch Oregon play, they're very much, and have been for a long time, they run the spread, at least I still believe they run the spread, but they run like a shorter spread to where it's a lot of swing passes, a lot of screens, a lot of running out of the spread. They don't push the ball that deep that frequently. Someone's going to disagree with that, I'm sure. Well, if you look at these percentages, doesn't matter. He's got strong, semi-inconsistent hands, but when he has the ball in his hands, it's staying in there. He's too fast to for linebackers to keep up with him, and he's too strong for DBs to affect him. And so, like you said, Joel, getting the right leverage on the blocking, he needs some work, but that's just technique work. And so, my real issue with him is that what you're going to get day one out of the box with Kenyon Sadiq is not going to be equivalent to the value of the pick that he's going to go at. And people are talking like pick 9 to the Chiefs. Some people are talking mid-20s. I think that the value you're going to get from him is not going to be equivalent to the value of pick.
Yeah, Avery, I'm curious if you agree with that, Avery, because you compared him to Evan Ingram. So, like, if you knew, Avery, that you were getting an Evan Ingram type of guy with, let's just say, the Bucs have pick 15. So let's say pick 15. Would you be excited about that? If you're getting Evan Ingram at pick 15, would you be excited about that?
Yeah, I would. I feel like the ceiling's a little higher than Evan Ingram. To be fair, though, I do feel like tight ends are kind of like you get from your tight end how you want to use them. That's a horrible. I did not word that very well, but it's just one of those things where if I mean you look like what Will said here, the stats, like it doesn't tell the whole story. The other thing is you have another future NFL player, Jamari Johnson, that's also getting, I mean, if you look at his stats, it's probably like 80% of what Kenyon got. So the thing is they're not necessarily, I mean, it's not like, I mean, if he played at some school where he is the only player getting drafted, like, yeah, he'd probably have twice as good of stats, because they're going to him more often. And I do think that is valuable to see, especially when defenses know coming into a game, this is their guy and we still can't stop him. So that is something else to look at. And that's usually how I'll decipher, higher stats like that is like, okay, this was a known commodity coming into every game and he's still got his numbers. The big thing to me is just the purely athleticism. I just, every time he touches the ball, it's a highlight play. And that's something that I feel like in the NFL right now, I mean, it's partially fan service, I guess, some exciting offensive players, but I mean, that's usually the difference between getting a first down and not getting a first down, breaking a play wide open, and that is what you get. So it'd be one thing if he was just a sure bet, always catching the balls, just reliable, but he's more than reliable. So for that, I think at 15, absolutely, I would pick him. I mean, I am biased too, but still, I'd pick him.
Okay, so follow-up question for both of you guys. Where would you put Kenyon Sadiq compared to Brock Bowers, Tyler Warren, and Colson Loveland? Because those were the three guys that were drafted in the first round the last 2 years. So where would you put Kenyon Sadiq compared to those three guys as a tight end?
I'd put him in the same spot as Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren, honestly. I feel like that is something where it depends on your usage. If you're a team that's not using your tight ends that well, or just you've got better options, then hey, maybe go with somebody else. But I remember watching both Tyler Warren at Penn State and Loveland at Michigan, and none of those guys did anything more than Kenyon Sadiq does. Not as far as just stats necessarily, but just as far as their physicals, their ability to catch, their ability to create space and break tackles. So I mean, again, I'm not saying that he's necessarily going to have a better rookie year. One, because I don't know what team he's on, and then two, I don't know how they're going to use him. But especially if they're using him to block a little bit more, then yeah, I mean, you're not going to see as many, receptions and yards.
I think due to frame size only, right? Because both Tyler Warren and Colson Loveland were 6'4", 6'5", right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loveland's a skinny boy though.
And the
or at
one
least he
thing
was a year ago.
One thing I've consistently learned from watching scouting reports and doing all that kind of stuff is that, boy, howdy, does 1 inch make a huge difference when it comes to scouting. And we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later with Mekhi Lemon for sure, because Mount kind of a molehill there to me. But I do think I put Sadiq under probably all 3, 4 of them. You said Bowers, Loveland, and Warren's, yeah, under all 3 of them. But again, it comes back to usage on his team. To go back to what you were saying, Avery, Jamari Johnson this year, 32 receptions, 510 yards. Sadiq got 51 catches, 560 yards. So Sadiq was targeted more, or he had more touchdowns. Jamar Johnson only had 3, Sadiq had 8. He had to share too much time, and that took away from him. Whereas I don't think Loveland or Warren or Bowers had to share the same time. I mean, Bowers at Georgia, that's all anybody would ever talk about down there. So I put him under there, but it's probably just recency bias, or I guess unbiased. I guess maybe I don't.
I think that's fair. Will's take. Honestly, I do think that's fair. I don't think that Sadiq has necessarily proven anything in college that he is better than these other prospects. I just think that that big playability is really what separates and, in my mind, adds enough value to go over. I wouldn't put him over Bowers just because Bowers has proven it year in and year out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I think that given the right team, he could be very similar to Brock Bowers, though. Just an absolute threat of a receiving tight end who can also block very well.
Yeah, and just to go to one thing that Will had kind of brought up with the scouting reports and how it makes a difference for 1 inch versus this guy versus this guy. It's like we talked about this last year with Harold Fannin Jr., right? He's not the typical size that you want in a tight end, but look at the rookie season he had. He was very good for the Browns. So I don't necessarily think that the size of Kenyon Sadiq makes any difference when evaluating him as a player. I know we kind of talked about it for Ruben Bain too, and how he doesn't have the arm length and that type of stuff. But the reason why it's a factor for Ruben Bain is because his lack of length doesn't allow him to make tackles that he should make. Like, he misses a lot of tackles. He actually missed over 15% of his tackles in every single college season. So in that case, it does make a difference. But in the case of Kenyon Sadiq, I don't think his size makes any difference when it comes to evaluating the player.
Also, Mark Davis' haircut still sucks.